Hello, my name is Everett Pierce of Einstein 314. This is duly noted 24C. Now, I didn't have enough time in the first part to reiterate and touch upon some further topics about Palestine and what's also happening in the current of news, providing all the information that has been brought to me is correct. Now, today is December the 30th, 2016. It is 5 a.m. in the morning. Now, in terms of the term, well, duly noted 24 is leader. The topic is leader. And why we are talking about destabilization. Now, this is a very important and critical element of energy that all leaders, and especially leaders of leaders, must know. Now, what we know with energy is basically what you see, can physically see and touch, and energy, the unseen. Like the wind. You don't see the wind, you see the remnants of the wind. And there are many other examples of energy that you do not ordinarily see. You have to use other skill sets of your to identify it. Okay, so like, for example, now we have machines that could detect it, but we'll say radiation, for example. You cannot see it. You know, of course, this machine would pick up the radiation. But if you didn't have a machine, and then people would die, what would appear to be maybe leprosy or cancer, that falls into the category of we hold these truths to be self-evident. So when you go back in time in evolution, and you're trying to explain certain concepts of people according to their evolution, that's quite a bit of a challenge of building an evolutionary bridge. So now let's start out from the beginning of time. The first book of Genesis, Adam and Eve. And let's focus on the forbidden tree of knowledge of good and evil. Okay, let's say good represents forever life, and evil represents extinction. Okay, because if I was to say forever life in the earlier development of evolution, people grasp it, but they don't really grasp it because they're aging, so they don't see evidence of forever life. Okay, just like the same as if I had mentioned about reincarnation. But as we know surrounding Jesus, all the stories. So, in terms of the Bible, some things are literally and metaphorically, or both. Because energy, the highest level of evolution, known as God, Allah, Jehovah, Creator. So the highest level of evolution has many names, many titles, just like anyone else out there. President of the United States, mom, dad, brother. And if you piss some people off, asshole. So with that is we hold these truths to be self-evident, that we hold on to many titles. So as a leader of leaders of your people, we the people, because we describes your nation, your group, whether it's the size of 10 or a size of 300 million or 1.5 billion. Okay, a good and evil. Okay, now let's understand the human behavior. Is we have our logic and we have our emotions. So our logic, in terms of symbolism, would be the good. Our emotions would be the evil, the good and evil. Male and female, day, night, yin, yang. Can I have lightning bolt? Can I have electricity without positive and negative ions? Okay, so a lot of these things that I explain is we hold these truths to be self-evident. Okay, because we can run into a lot of things that isn't self-evident. Is radiation. You do not see it, but you see the byproduct of it. When you see people dying and sores and basically what looks like cancer, that could be perceived in many different things. Now, in the beginning of Genesis, why was the symbolism of Eve was created from Adam's bone? Because if I was to teach it and say Eve was created by the sperm of Adam, that would be incorrect. Because at that time, that's the only thing that you could actually see when a man ejaculates. So, in the early time of things, and that's why the Asians, they would have the female on her back as not to spill the seeds. As we see with apple trees and fruit trees, within that fruit there are seeds. So, that's why man, the male, in terms of evolution and concept of things, had a higher value. Because they actually believed that if you got rid of the woman, you would still have the ability to populate. Okay, now as evolution moves on, and you move beyond the stone wheel to the rubber tire, and your understanding of things, and you get more technology, and you have more of, we hold these truths to be self-evident. So, now you go back in 2016 years ago, during Jesus' time. Now, I don't speak from I think. I do not speak from the level of a scholar. I speak from the level of an author. I speak from I know. And I can bring an abundance of evidence, exhibits, which is also, exhibit is a term used in our justice system. Okay. Now, in our justice system, it's set up, and like I was just saying, things you do not see. It is very difficult to prove intent. Okay. And then you have a next step further is, was the intent malicious and destructive that would be consistent with extinction, or was it constructive? That's why, like the wind, even from the very beginning, is you are being subjected to energy that you don't necessarily see, but you see the results of it. It's like the sun. You don't see the heat, there's a mirage, but you feel the heat, but you don't actually see the heat happening, these heat rays. Okay, now in the pictures, you depict, the sun rays. Okay, but they weren't able to see them. Okay, now going back, Jews. It's a three letters, J-E-W. Okay. Now, the first letter of Jew, or Jews, is the letter J. If you don't know, you should know. If I go J, It just looks like like a 7 that fell down. Okay, J is also the 10th letter of the alphabet. 10. Now, if you look at the Last Supper, Jesus is at the table. Of course, it'll probably be reversed. But as you're looking at the picture, on your left hand side, Jesus' hand is this. It means his left palm is up, and the other palm is down, like he's grabbing. Receive and take. Okay, but anyways, he's in the illustration of the hands. As we know, with the two hands is 10 factor. We have 10 digits. Jew is the 10th letter of the alphabet. Now, being this way and this way, it means opposite each other. It means the good and the bad. It means the reverse. Male, female. And then to the left of Jesus is Mary Magdalene. Since Jesus is the focal point to the Last Supper, you start there, and if you're going to go yin-yang, you start there and you go to the left of that picture. Means right to left. Someone who is left-handed, the activity starts in the right side of the brain, ending with the left hand. And he's looking at his left hand. Okay, and his fingers, 10. These are all telltale signs. Now, I'm going to stop right there with some details, because I also have to take into account that if someone was listening to all my videos and they were a scholar of it and they come forward and they are pretending to be me, which many people have done, but there's only one of me. So there's some things that I withhold back. So when someone does try to be like an Elvis impersonator or an Everett impersonator, that's when I step forward and I hand you your ass. And it will be on the level that you'll be asking for it. Because I'm not going to allow you in my presence to be me when you're not. So, as a leader of leaders, there's some things you have to leave out that proves you're an author, that you are a leader of leaders. Because a scholar can only learn so much in this box of knowledge. But the author will know everything. The author will know where he's at when he wrote chapter 1. What he was doing, what he was thinking, who he was talking to. That's not conveyed in this knowledge, this book by the author. So that's why a lot of things I'm going to withhold my exhibits, some of my evidence, but provide you enough evidence just in itself is enough to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt in any court of law that what I'm saying is, in regards to the Palestinians, see, I don't even want to say the name of it, is they were behind the torture and the crucifixion of Jesus. Now, this may come to a surprise to you, but in terms of reincarnation, that was also one of my lifetimes. So when I say I know, I say I know with conviction. And not only do I come with conviction, is there were plenty of things left behind, and it still exists today, that I can bring about using the chicken concept. Means if it looks like a chicken, sounds like a chicken, and walks like a chicken, the chicken. And in any court of law, the chances are it's a chicken. Okay, overwhelming evidence. And the purpose behind that was it's hard to prove intent. So now if you have the Jews and the Palestinians saying, this is my land, this is your land, da 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 da, and now it's like a constant fight. Okay, well, human behavior, a leader of leaders, has to take in account of his people. One of the things you cannot take away from people is these skill sets. Lying, deception, and everything. Now, people may be on different levels of how to utilize those tools, whether it's constructive or destructive. So telling a lie is not always destructive, and telling the truth is not always constructive. The yin yang, the symbolism of the sword, what's your salvation, also comes back and cuts your head off. So the forbidden tree of good and evil. You say, well, why would God, highest evolution, would say that's a forbidden tree of good and evil? Because, number one, the forbidden. Okay, if the polarity that day for God was in reverse, it has to tell you forbidden versus I want you to go to that tree. Basically, God wants you to decide for yourself what you want and what you see is reasonable and logic. The two-factor. There's Adam and Eve, two-factor. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, the two-factor. So you all chose the tree of good and evil. So a leader of leaders, a leader, knows that these tool sets of the human behavior is inseparable to all of the people he governs. The government itself is a religion because highest level evolution, known as God, Jehovah, Creator, whatever you want to call it, is a facilitator. What's a facilitator? It means it overlooks, like a sheep herder to sheep. Symbolism is, so as we see on this planet, the sixth heaven, is we have many types of leaders. We got dictatorships, we got all kinds of leaders, even amongst or in our criminals of all walks of life. So there's always a head to some kind of group. So, and that head, that leader, that president, is facilitating their people, teaching their people. So, when you step back and you say you got all these head leaders, who is the leader of the leaders? Now, if God, the highest evolution, it is being the leader of the universe, and God, energy, wants you to do as much as you can within your planet, within your people, to practice the foundation of energy, of leadership. This is level 1 of leadership. So Palestine's, what's in the news, and what Jews in Israel, as I said in 24, duly noted 24C, and this is being the continuation of C, so we'll call it duly noted 24CC. Okay, now Jews, or Jew, is just a one word. So if it's two words, like Everett Pierce, you would use E, capital E-P. Those are called initials. So, like some people have used, word to G, like word to God. Okay, so symbolism, initials. So Jew, J-W. W is the 23rd letter. So J is the 10th letter. And 10 plus 23 is 33. And Jesus was 33 years old at the time of the crucifixion, which is another telltale sign. If you outline Israel, it looks like a shoe. And over here, which is called Italy, it looks like a big boot. A big, obvious, we hold these truths to be self-evident, looks like a boot. Now, in today's time, we would see a high heel boot would be associated with a woman. But that high heel boot could also be a fisherman, water resistant boot. Fisherman. The element, so it's either a woman or fisherman. And see, Jesus, in terms of symbolism of the fish and how he... So, is that a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that when you draw an outline around Israel, that it looks like a small shoe? It just happened to be sitting on the Dead Sea, as if the shoe is walking on water, and you see the other waterways walking on water. Jesus' symbolism, walking on water. So, the Palestinians wanted jurisdiction of that area because of the divinity. It was a paradox, or not paradox, of what we would say vortex, an energy vortex. So, now we have seen in movies where, especially with Thor, and Thor was granted to be the next king. And then his other brother, was it Locust or whatever, he was jealous of Thor. And he, in the movie, he'd done all these little things to basically take his brother out so he would be crowned king. Now, of course, that's a movie. But essentially, that is what was taking place back then. And now you have to ask yourself, basically, they were jealous of this divinity aspect of that area. And they feel they were cheated out and somehow. In terms of hierarchy, that place primary, in terms of hierarchy, was Jew. The third element, Trinity. Okay, so if you take J-E-W, add them up, that is a 38. If you count your fingers, like I was on the Last Supper picture, one's hand's this way. If you add it up, it's a 38. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 and 8 is in the middle, praying. So that's what we're seeing with the Palestinians, is territory, and they're still, even to this day, is being, they essentially want to kill the Jews. So did Hitler. Because what causes a chain reaction is called entitlement, that we see in America with the Democrats. They feel entitlement because they're here. They have a certain level of entitlement. So, hold on a second. So, the Palestinians have this entitlement issue, just like our Democrats here do. And so they felt like they got cheated out somehow. Okay, now the big problem that we have here is if they take control of that particular area, in their mindset, they feel they are now of divinity, and their behaviors, their action, their radicalized thinking is now justified by divinity. And as what we're seeing in the news, chopping off the heads of Christians and attacking what happened in Berlin, Germany. And we have all these refugees. That refugee situation was deliberately done that way. In the Hajj, which is the covering, is a spiritual warfare. So as a leader of leaders, of destabilizing, you have to know that. You have to know that people are... That's Gracie. You have to know this as a leader of leaders, to take an account of things you see and what you don't see and what's at play. And you have to use collective knowledge, information, to cipher, to bring forth this hidden intent, or the things that you do not see. So Palestine's essentially, like I said before, were behind the torture and the crucifixion of Jesus. I know that I was there. I have memory of this. This is my reincarnation. So I can tell you a lot of things about that time that you will not ordinarily hear about in a book. Like, for example, if I, up on a cross, my hands are nailed to this wood, and I say, my God, am I talking to God, or am I making reference to God, this son of a bitch hurts? Yes. Why thou forsaken me? Means, why have you voted against me? Why are you standing in front of me? I've been your salvation. I try to help you out. And yet you want to see me die and let a murderer, rapist, and pedophile go. So now you have to ask you a couple questions. What would have happened that would have forced those people so angrily and hatefully? There's a lot of hate there. Why would Jesus have a crown of thorns on his head? It's because I can endure a lot of pain in terms of torture, and that's what they put upon me. And for the fact they weren't being effective and I was criticizing them, they were sucking at torturing someone. And they said, oh, you think you're the king of pain. And that's where the crown's king of thorns. I was the king of pain. Not the king of Jews, but the king of pain. Because the thorns was symbolism of pain, seeing the blood run down my face. Oh, so you think you're the king of pain? Because I was critiquing them. It's like, you suck at torture. I mean, it hurt like hell. I mean, you can't take that away. And for the fact that they were so angry and hatred, they were going to let go a murderer, rapist, pedophile to see to and make sure that I was dead. So why? What would anger them so much? One is this entitlement. They feel like they got gypped out of something of divinity. And two, I was going around teaching people of energy like I'm doing right now. And that would educate the Jews of knowing some things, basic things about energy. And one of them of knowing that little area was for the Jews. That was, assignment, when you're assigned certain things. And it wasn't assigned to the Palestinians. So as we see in our nation and many other nations out there, a leader, president of presidents, that the multitude of deception and lies and falsehood and acting like a good Samaritan, all these human behaviors that are at play that people are trying to use and implement of what they want to receive. So a leader of leaders is going to take an account for that. And you have to stand strong on fairness. So, and I was too. So, I jeopardized it, in a sense, I was their retaliation. It's like, oh, okay. Because they felt entitlement. They felt that this divinity, this location, was endowed to them. And they didn't like the idea that the hierarchy was to Jews. So they were going to make a point. Oh, okay. So we see that human behavior even to this day. And what I see in Israel, and what's happening, wanting to kill the Jews. Now, Israel has been destabilized. Okay, so what do we see with Syria? On a $1 bill, above our eagle, the seal. If you connect the dots, connect the stars, heavens. Okay, the eagle's facing to the pyramid. And if you look at Israel, which from your view would be, basically when you look at Israel, it is looking to the left, looking to the west. And I was speaking to a Catholic, and it says, the coming of Jesus, he will be coming from the east. Okay, so if you're east and I'm west, and you're walking to me, you're coming from the east. So Israel over here, United States is over here. So that would be coming east. So Israel is ground zero of Christianity. Christianity is basically a government, a facilitator. And as you see with all nations out there, we hold these truths to be self-evident. We are the only nation that has such an enormous size of diversity all in one land, in the United States. From religion, to skin tones, to cultures, from all around the world. So, you go to any other nation out there, that's one of the characteristics you will not see with any other nation. Now, as we evolve in evolution, you're going to have some mixing in. But still at that, of a nation that hasn't fallen, who has a symbol of the Star of David, the six-pointed star facing the pyramids, means Egypt. So these are all telltale signs. So I feel sorry for the Jews, because from Hitler to the Palestinians, so Israel is supposed to look like a shoe, Achilles' heel. So what I said in duly noted 24C, the first part of this, is I think it's pretty well self-explanatory without giving more details of exhibits and facts and evidence, that overwhelmingly, using the chicken concept, it looks like a chicken tick, 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 tick. So through deception. Now, do I blame the Palestinians? Is when you go up the tree, their forefather and their forefather, and this is being passed down for 2016 years and plus. So essentially, they are being taught what people back in 2016 believed in, a particular concept. And they feel that if they acquire what is this land of Israel, this element of divinity, that now their behaviors are also justified. And that's one of the Pandora's box that's happening. Now there's other things at play as well here. Is that particular location, if it gets destabilized, it also acts, it can also start a supernova. But before you'll see a supernova, you'll start seeing the weather pattern at 45 shift to a 60. And that's when you have, an F5 tornado or hurricane would be considered small. An earthquake of 9.0 would be considered a little tremor. So there are many things that is associated, and that's why the crucifixion of that incident had to be there in no other location. And as we know with, I call it the 7-pound foot, and that's why Israel looks like a shoe. And what would be in a shoe? A foot. Italy, a big boot. It's a big boot, or what fishermen, when they stand out in the streams. So there are many things at play. So Palestinians do not have any jurisdiction over Israel. Now, from my gathering to this day, 2016, that the Jews have reached from day one. It was like that back then. working with other people, because it was about bringing other family, friends together and try work together in a system. But they didn't want a system. They just want it for themselves. That's why we have certain people, and I tease, like you got someone from Harvard, and they think they are the superior. Like it's because of them that they are the reason why the human race is superior. So you got that race of human behavior people that think it's because of them. It's because of them as to why we have what we have, this earth, why we are considered superior. So, and we see that in all walks of life, in all nations, in all leaders out there, you will see it, and you have seen it. So that's one of the leaders have to do. You have to take into account of human behavior, unforeseeable things. But you use and you develop your skill sets using collective information, collective feedback to head it off right at the pass. So this thing about the UN and Israel and a by state, that was assigned to the Jews. And I can sit here all day long giving you telltale sign and symbolism that still exists today, that was planted back then, that when it came to that day, that judgment day, if there's going to be a judgment day, I mean, Palestinians had 2016 years to evolve and correct their behavior of doing things. And then at that point, when you got that much evolution to correct yourself, now all bets are off. Is the Jews are assigned hierarchy 1 primary of Israel. So, and that's why we're having problems in the east in Syria. Is there has been some destabilization going on. Like we see in America, taking out the middle class. You destabilize everything. Stock market crashes. The housing crashes. Why do you, when you eat at a table, like the Last Supper, you have 4 legs. You don't go there and start yanking 2 your legs out because the table will fall. There's a reason why Trinity, the third element, is why is water 2 elements, but in a 1-2 factor, totaling 3. Trinity, third element, because it's more stable. Stability. So a leader of leaders has to be aware at all times of his stability of himself or herself and the people in which he's facilitating. So, as far as, what day was a good day to bring some of this information out, it's like, today is, if anything, before things get any worse than what they are. And you at least know who you're dealing with. Jews are, like I already said, they have used deceit, murder, and everything else because they feel this entitlement. They feel that they should have been awarded this. They should have been the hierarchy 1 in the area. And if they take it over, they destabilization. Then they get this sense of divinity that they're worthy, their cause, what they do is justified. So that's just one of many things that will come from destabilization. Just like pulling legs out from a table of what transpires. Now, when you make Israel strong again, and you have its borders, and Palestine is not basically stepping on the toes of the Jews, you'll notice a lot of the unnecessary things will fizzle out. Like cutting the right head off a snake, and then the rest of the 5 heads will fall off and die. Or you can cut the wrong head off, and then 2 grow back. Cut those 2 off, and then 4 grows back. So that's a symbolism of, are you addressing the symptoms or are you addressing the source of the problem? So, I have nothing against the Palestinians, but I do ask them that they really need to step back and rethink of the teachings that have been passed down to them. Because now we're at a state, not only with ISIS, but we're also at the state to hand not only ISIS their ass, and it's like, it angers me. It doesn't anger. I'm not mad at or angry at them. You know, like I have something against them. I'm pissed off because now I'm in a position for self-preservation for the United States and all nations. That we now have to put you in a form of extinction before you do that to us. And then you're doing these terrorist attacks, you're doing these lone wolf attacks, and then you're trying to destabilize Israel. No. Your legacy is finished. You had 2016 years to get it right. And Israel, Jews, have been working with you trying to put a resolve and bring about peace and maintain peace because you felt this element of entitlement. You don't have entitlement. That's something you earn. That is something that is assigned to you. And there will be more than enough evidence showing such, which I can provide. But I cannot provide any more what I've already said in regards to Israel. But do know, I mean, just these two videos should be enough. Any court, a room, or justice system, Supreme Court, to give more than just plausibility. I mean, it sounded like a chicken, walking like a chicken, it looks like a chicken, it tastes like a chicken. And you could just listen to the demeanor of both parties. One represents forever life, another one represents forever death or extinction. They want to kill them. So, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I have nothing against anyone. But I do have something against someone who has practiced these skill sets of human behavior, and they've taken it too far, and they're actually paired up with extinction. Then I have a problem. Because it threatens Russia, Australia, China, all nations. It threatens all of us. Because as we know with this snowball, when it starts downhill, it's small, but when it gets halfway down, it gets huge and its size gets really quick. And that's the characteristic of extinction. So, I say this with endearment. I don't say this to piss anyone off or disrespect anyone. So I have made this duly noted, and you are duly noted. 24cc. So hopefully this has enlightened you of your thinking of what we should be doing to our brothers and sisters in Israel. Because technically they are the 51st state of the United States because they are ground zero. Like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 10 digits. 9 of them actually have a value. But 0 has a different value. It has a place.